Stuck in a cycle of love and pain, I revisited an old relationship, only to find toxic traits resurfacing. As I grappled with self-doubt and isolation, I broke something precious to him, igniting a desire to leave. Can I really start over at 40 without losing myself again? I have been in this relationship on and off for 5 years. At one point, we broke up, and I relocated for a job. I found myself alone in a new area where I did not know anyone. The breakup was quite difficult because he has children, and I became very invested in my relationship with them. In addition to my deep love for him, we have known each other for over 20 years. It was the hardest, most gut-wrenching breakup of my life, but over time and after many tears, I eventually became okay. I tried dating other people on dating applications for the first time. It was awful, and I dated one person more seriously, but we wanted different things. After that second breakup, I felt completely alone and dedicated myself to my job. Then my current partner and I decided to give our relationship another chance after many conversations and planning. I do love him deeply, but I was worried about our toxic traits from the past resurfacing. We originally broke up because he became physical with me. This occurred a couple of times over a brief period, and I do not tolerate that, so I left. That being said, I realize that while I know that behavior is unacceptable, I also have my issues. We both have tempers and struggle to maintain calm during heated arguments. However, I have never been physical with him. We have had intense fights characterized by a lot of screaming. Fast forward to last year. We reconciled, and he moved to the area where I live. His children were no longer involved since he effectively relinquished custody to their mother without fully considering the laws, which is a separate story. I was upset about this because I love them very much, and they now live across the country. Consequently, we do not see them except during breaks and holidays. We both wanted to fight for custody, but it seemed as though he decided against it and did not try. This created some strain in our relationship. Additionally, things have been somewhat complicated since he moved here. He struggled to find a job, and when he finally got one, it was not what he wanted. Unsurprisingly, he dislikes his job and complains about it daily. This is exhausting for me. I have a challenging job as a teacher, but I love it. It is rewarding, and I have the opportunity to be creative. He gains little satisfaction from his job, and it offers far less potential for advancement. He earns significantly more money here, but his misery makes it seem not worth it. You might wonder why he does not leave his job. He works in property maintenance, and we receive a substantial rental discount where we live. I have suggested moving so he can find a new job, but he is insistent that we move to a house. I personally do not want to rent a house, so I have been exploring the possibility of purchasing one. I have a decent down payment and good credit, while he has been here for almost a year with no savings and poor credit. Therefore, everything will need to be in my name, with him contributing to the mortgage, possibly with the option to be added later. This dynamic has created tension because I feel significant pressure to buy a house. However, I feel as though I must handle it alone and bear all the risk. Due to his job and prior circumstances, he frequently experiences a bad mood. He complains a lot. He misses his children but takes no steps to regain custody. He had full custody of them for over 3 years without assistance from their mother. I try to have fun, but it often feels like I am irritating him. He has very little joy. When I express my feelings, share frustrations, or address issues in our relationship, he becomes upset. He grows defensive and claims that nothing he does is good enough. Everything he does is wrong, or that I turn everything into a problem. When I attempt to communicate how he has hurt me, the conversation suddenly shifts to how I have hurt him. Then he accuses me of not listening and being selfish when I ask him to address those issues separately. He also has a notoriously poor memory, often insisting that events did or did not occur in a way that I am certain is inaccurate. When I tell him I am fairly sure something happened in a specific manner, he argues that he should not always be wrong just because he has a bad memory. It feels like gaslighting, but I understand he genuinely believes things happened that way. One of the most significant issues is that recently he has also been hitting himself during our arguments. He has not put his hands on me or harmed me in any way in years, but it feels like he is doing this to intimidate me or prevent me from voicing my feelings. He has given himself black eyes, and witnessing this is very frightening. When I told him that it felt somewhat manipulative, he accused me of being a narcissist. Now, I know I have substantial issues. I have gone through a lot of trauma and am still working through many past experiences. I struggle with feelings of being unloved and abandoned by my family. I am in the process of returning to therapy and working on improving my mental outlook. I have requested that he initiate therapy to address his self-harm and other issues, but he does not respond to me about it. Everything I say that he does not want to hear is met with apparent indifference, annoyance, or outright irritation. I have started drinking significantly more because I feel miserable when I am around him. This is not an excuse. I know it is my responsibility, but I see a pattern emerging. Unfortunately, I do not have a strong support system where I live, which feels incredibly isolating. I have a wonderful job, which feels like the highlight of my life, but all my friends and family are far away. It is much more challenging to make friends at my age. I no longer feel like myself. I am normally a funny and silly person, but now I feel like all I want to do is drink and sleep. I have communicated to him that I wish to reduce my drinking. However, he insists that alcohol helps with his anxiety. He takes medication, but believes alcohol is the only solution. Personally, I feel that it only exacerbates his anxiety. After sharing this lengthy account, I realize I need to leave. This situation is toxic, and it is damaging both him and me. I recently broke something that belongs to him, which he values highly. Normally, I would not do anything like that because I understand its significance. I think I lost control in a burst of emotion and pain, and I needed to take action to finally end this relationship. Unfortunately, he still wants to remain together, and his father recently passed away in a tragic manner. This makes me feel incredibly guilty about wanting to leave. Beyond the guilt, I feel trapped with him. I want to buy a house, and I have been pre-approved on my own, but I live in an expensive area and would struggle to afford the mortgage alone. While I could manage one of the few affordable, run-down houses 45 minutes from my job, it would mean barely scraping by. I am finally in a position where I am not living paycheck to paycheck and can actually save money. Given the uncertainty in the world, I am terrified of starting over. I know I can be alone. I just fear that if I leave him, I will be alone forever. I cannot imagine attempting to date again at nearly 40 years old. I could get an apartment, but that would mean being tied to a lease, and by the time it ends, I doubt I will still be able to afford a house in this market. I feel as if I am trapped, watching my life slowly pass by. I understand that most people will suggest I move, get a roommate, buy the house I cannot truly afford, or take risks regardless. I am simply tired. I lack the energy to pull myself up by my bootstraps again. My heart and soul are weary. Perhaps I do not need logistical advice. Maybe I just need guidance on how to revitalize my soul after making too many mistakes in pursuit of the wrong kind of love, and how to reconnect with the resilient, magical person I once was, who now feels like a distant memory. Story 2. Am I the asshole for pushing away someone who wanted me so badly, and now I want her back, but she's with someone else? I am a 27-year-old male who is realizing the series of mistakes I have made over the last 2 years, and I am in desperate need of some solutions. Please refrain from sending any negativity if you are unable to help. Back in October 2022, I encountered a colleague, and we discussed general work topics. We clicked and ended up talking for hours on end. After 2 days like this, we switched to WhatsApp. This was during the work-from-home era, and we had not yet met in person. We talked for hours and we liked each other, but the girl was already engaged, and I was pursuing someone else. I believed we were both okay, thinking this would only be a just friends dynamic, and we continued. We would have late-night calls and leave the WhatsApp call connected while we slept. One night, she called my name. I heard her but didn't respond with yes or no. She said, "I love you," and I replied, "I love you too." It was almost 40 days before her wedding, and things between her and the man she was marrying were not going well. I tried to tell her that she should call off the wedding and be with me instead. She was 3 years older, earning 3 times what I did, and we had never met in real life. Additionally, this was a love marriage based on practical decisions, which made it difficult for her to back out at the last moment, as is often agreed upon among many Indian women. We paused for 2 to 4 days, but we resumed talking after that. We continued our connection, and I was there for her when things in her marriage were going wrong. The situation was rough. Although the guy was decent, he was emotionally unavailable. I supported her. I always wanted to be with her. In January 2024, I asked if she would leave her husband for me, and she replied no. She said, "He is my friend and I cannot hurt him." I pointed out that she wasn't happy with him, and she responded, "At least I am not unhappy." By this time, we were in the same city and hung out quite often. However, when she said she would not leave her husband, I started to withdraw slowly. From January to April, I became emotionally detached because there was no future for us together. I left and stopped talking for 3 months. During that time, I met another person, a 24-year-old female, who came into my life, and things began to progress quickly. I thought it would be fine. Perhaps it was just the timing, and it seemed more practical to pursue her, especially since I might have a potential future with her. So we started dating. By then, I was moving forward with the 24-year-old female and was not communicating with the 30-year-old female. 3 months later, a mutual friend of mine and the 30-year-old female suggested that we should talk, regardless of the differences we had. The friend was unaware that we were dating. We spoke again, and at that point, I was talking to both the 24-year-old and the 30-year-old females. The 30-year-old had somehow begun discussing divorce with her husband because she wanted to be with me. Over the last 3 months, she had realized that her marriage wasn't working and that she wanted me, which my absence made clear to her. She informed her husband that she liked me, but did not mention that I liked her as well, as she did not want to impose that on me and took the blame herself. Over time, her husband became a friend, and he once told me I was his second best friend. This was also why I had left. I did not want to hurt him so badly that he would suffer from lifelong trust issues. When the 30-year-old female reached out to me about moving forward, I reacted poorly. I said hurtful things, behaved inappropriately, and was not the nicest person to someone who genuinely loved and cared for me. I told her that I never asked her to do any of that, and that she couldn't just appear out of nowhere and ask me to proceed. This was partly because I was seeing the 24-year-old. However, I was still in contact with both the 24-year-old and the 30-year-old. At some point, I realized that I did not have a future with the 24-year-old due to cultural differences, and she wouldn't speak to her parents at all. Yet, my emotions leaned more towards the 24-year-old while I was growing detached from the 30-year-old. The 30-year-old female did everything she could to win me back. She sacrificed her ego and self-respect and tirelessly tried to rekindle our connection for 8 months, from May to December 2024. During that time, I had broken up with the 24-year-old, citing the lack of a future. Later, I considered reconnecting with her, believing I could communicate with her parents directly about marriage. Thus, I focused entirely on the 24-year-old while disregarding the efforts the 30-year-old had made. Eventually, I realized that pursuing the 24-year-old was not worth the effort, as she did not want to be with me. As time went on, I attempted to rekindle things with her from August 2024 to January 2025, but I had finally lost feelings for the 24-year-old. At this point, and acknowledging that this may be a selfish move, I recognized that the 30-year-old had always been there for me. Although we faced complications in the first 1.5 years, and things had been traumatic, I reached out to the 30-year-old, expressing my desire to see her and mend our relationship. She was overjoyed and eager to reconnect, not knowing a surprise awaited us. After traveling for 8-9 days on a trip, I arrived in her city in the afternoon. I was supposed to meet her, but my friend advised me to have lunch first. After lunch, he suggested I take some medicine and rest for a while. I did, but I unintentionally slept for 6 hours and stood her up. When I awakened, I called her to apologize and explained that I had fallen asleep. I expressed my desire to fix things, but she replied that if I truly wanted it, I would have made the effort. She then voiced that her distrust had grown in me. Consequently, we had a fight, and we did not meet the following morning either, as I had a flight back that evening. Again, we failed to meet and argued afterwards, leading to a complete lack of communication. 1.5 months later, I dreamt about her and reached out to apologize, expressing that I genuinely wanted to make things work. I asked if we could talk. The following day, we spoke. She informed me that since December, she had been seeing someone else, and the vibes had matched, but she would have left him had I met her in January, which I had completely messed up. Now that I am willing to do everything to repair our relationship, she stated that she likes the other man and wants to pursue that relationship. The other man is a 35-year-old male who is finalizing his divorce next month. In June, when she asked her husband for a divorce, he responded that if I was willing to take her, then it was acceptable for her to proceed with the divorce, but he questioned what would happen if I was not interested. The 30-year-old reached out to me afterwards, asking if I would speak with her husband. I reiterated that I had no involvement in her divorce. However, the 35-year-old said that her husband would not refuse the divorce. Once my divorce is finalized, he would speak to him directly. The 30-year-old quoted this to me, saying it is what gives her the confidence to talk to her husband about pursuing a relationship with the 35-year-old man. Now that I truly want to be with the 30-year-old female, I see no pathway back to her, and despite everything I tell her, she insists she will block me if I attempt to reconnect romantically. She is open to friendship but not to being romantic partners. I am at a loss regarding what to do and how to remedy this situation. If only I had met her in January, things would have been completely different, but now it is beyond my control. How can I win her back? Too long, didn't read. A guy meets a girl, falls in love, falls out of love, and finds someone else. The first girl makes every effort to be with him. The guy does not appreciate her and treats her poorly. When he desires the first girl back, there is a new man in her life. Story 3. I, 22M, kept sabotaging my relationship with my girlfriend, 21F, out of guilt. Now she has ended things. My girlfriend, 21 years old, female, and I, 22 years old, male, were together for 2 years, although I am not sure if that is even the right way to describe it. Our relationship was entirely long distance, and due to my overly rigid beliefs, I never saw her face or heard her voice. My beliefs also made this type of relationship feel inappropriate. Essentially, I was setting myself up for failure from the beginning. I often found myself thinking that I was merely holding her back, and she deserved someone better, someone who could genuinely provide her with the love and attention she needs, without all the associated guilt and confusion. Because of my beliefs, I consistently felt as though I was crossing some invisible boundary, leading to a troubling cycle of guilt and self-sabotage. I would break up with her, convinced that staying together was only causing her pain. Ending the relationship felt like a noble way to save her from me. However, after some time apart, I would miss her and return, only to repeat the entire performance. This cycle occurred about 6 or 7 times over the span of 2 years. At various points, I even contemplated making her dislike me, in hopes that she would end things herself and alleviate our suffering. I tried subtle ways to distance myself, nothing overtly dramatic, just enough to make her question why she was with me in the first place. Yet, she never took the bait. She deserves to be with someone better, someone who does not experience this constant guilt, someone who can love her openly and completely. The real turning point occurred when I decided to align our relationship with my beliefs, since that has proven so successful in the past. To achieve this, I felt the need to propose to her. In my culture, involving family in such matters is significant, so I asked her if it would be all right to share her number with my mother. She agreed, and my mother and she arranged a video call to talk. Following that conversation, my girlfriend began to act distant and cold. When I confronted her, she confessed that she viewed me more as an internet friend, despite my clear indication that I intended to propose. She broke up with me, and it hurt deeply. Well, how perfect. I finally attempt to do the right thing, and it backfires. Perhaps she was not ready for a serious commitment, or maybe she realized I was not worth the hassle. About a month later, she contacted me, sending a journal in which she had written about me. Reading it brought me to tears, as it was filled with love and emotions she had never shared to that extent before. For a brief moment, I felt hopeful. Maybe we could make this work. Perhaps I could be the person she deserves, or more likely, I would simply mess it up again. I attempted to mend our relationship by suggesting improvements, and she appeared receptive, or at least she claimed to be. However, 2 weeks later, she texted me unexpectedly, stating that she no longer liked me and that I was not important to her. I lied and told her I had stopped loving her as well, leading to yet another breakup. Those final 2 breakups were the first times she had initiated the end, and they were more painful than I anticipated. Whenever I ended things with her, I would often tell her that she deserved someone better and confess the guilt I experienced regarding our relationship. "You deserve so much more than this," I would say. "I know I'm just holding you back." I was confident she would find someone who was not a complete disaster like me. However, when she broke up with me, her words were harsh and painful, making those moments even more challenging. Perhaps she is right. Maybe I am not enough for her. Maybe I never was. A month after our last breakup, she reached out again, apologizing and stating that she needed a year to focus on herself and reflect on our relationship. I told her I would consider it, but I was still in pain. Perhaps this is her way of letting me down gently, or maybe she is just bored and wants to see how much more I can embarrass myself. Now, 3 months have passed, and I miss her terribly. I want to text her desperately, but I am uncertain if this is truly the end or if there is still a chance for us. Edit. Many of you are inquiring about my beliefs. To clarify, these beliefs are rooted in my cultural and religious values. I believe in arranged marriage and feel uncomfortable forming deep emotional or physical connections before that stage. While I feel it is acceptable to hear her voice, I did not feel comfortable connecting in that manner. It felt wrong to me. That is why I struggled with guilt throughout the relationship. I hope this explanation makes sense.